Hello and welcome back to Saints of the Week here at the Things That Don't Change. This is the third week of Easter. Happy Easter once again. Alleluia, alleluia. A couple fewer saints this week than we had last week to go over, but two saints that are no less exciting to discuss. So jumping right in, the first saint we got this week is Saint Damien of Moloka'i. Now, Saint Damien was born on January 3rd in the year 1840. He was Belgian, so he was born in Tremello in Belgium. He was actually born with the name Joseph. His name was Joseph de Veuster. And at the age of 13, he left school, to help out on his family's farm. His family was a kind of a lower class farming family. However, 6 years after that, he decided to enter the Congregation of the Sacred Hearts of Jesus and Mary. And it was during this time that he actually took the name Damien in honor of the early church martyr, Saint Damien. Just before Damien was actually ordained a priest, his brother, who actually was also a priest in this same order, was supposed to go serve as a missionary to the Hawaiian Islands, which, of course, at this time was not part of the United States yet. It was not very heavily Christianized. It was just the native Hawaiian kingdom of Hawaii that existed there during that time. So Damien's brother was supposed to go. However, his brother became ill and was not able to go very suddenly. So, Damien was very quick to kind of volunteer to go in his place. So in 1864, he arrived in Honolulu, and that's actually where he was ordained a priest. And he served in Honolulu for a couple of years before being sent to minister to the Hawaiian government's leper colony, which was on the island of Molokai, so one of the other Hawaiian islands separate from where Honolulu is on Oahu. So that was in 1873. He was sent to this leper colony to serve there. He served at a settlement known as Kalapapa. And originally he was sent as a team of 4 chaplains. Kind of the idea was that each of the chaplains would spend 3 months out of the year on the islands and then kind of rotate out. But after a while, after not being there for very long, Damien decided that he was just going to stay, kind of be the permanent chaplain to the lepers, to the isolated members in this settlement. So while he was there, he, of course, tended to the material needs of the people, was very well liked, served as an advocate towards, kind of between them and the Hawaiian government. Of course, there was all these promises the Hawaiian government would provide them with certain assistances, and, sometimes that didn't come through. So Damien just worked to make sure that the people got what they needed. This included, new housing, a new church, eventually a new school, and then also an orphanage, kind of in this settlement. So, in the years that he was working there, he was also able to get the Franciscan Sisters of Syracuse, which were led by Mother Marianne Cope, who also later became a saint. He was able to get her sisters to kind of help minister on this island. So he served there for several years. Eventually, though, he did contract leprosy and ended up dying from the disease on April 15th in 1889. And he was buried, right in that settlement that he loved very much, right there in Kalapapa. However, later in the year 1936, his remains were transferred to Belgium, where they were kept for a while. However, when he was actually beatified in the year 1995, part of his remains were brought back to Molokai to kind of, stay with in the area where he ministered and did a lot of his great work. And actually, when the territory of Hawaii became the state of Hawaii in the year 1959, of course, all states of the United States have a statue in the statuary hall in the Capitol building where, they're able to kind of decide on 2 famous people from their state that'll kind of represent them in this great hall full of all the different statues of all the different peoples from all the different states. So Hawaii actually decided that Father Damien would be one of their statues there. So his statue's still there until today, representing the state of Hawaii. As I said, he was beatified in 1985 and eventually canonized by Pope Benedict XVI in 2009. And as I've said, his feast day is May 10th. Now, the next saint, his feast day is actually also on May 10th. This is Saint John of Avila. So Saint John was born in Andalusia, which is basically in southern Spain. He's born around the year 1500. And at the age of 14, he decided to go to the University of Salamanca to study law. He wanted to be a lawyer. However, after a couple of years doing that, he made the decision that law wasn't something quite for him. He didn't really enjoy it very much. So he ended up returning home and just kind of dedicating himself to a life of piety, a life of, austerity, of prayer and penance. And eventually, this brought him to the city of Alcala, where he started to study philosophy and theology. He entered seminary while he was here, and unfortunately during this time, his family passed away, so he kind of inherited all of the wealth from them. And he decided to use this wealth for the poor, so he actually donated all of the wealth that he inherited to the poor. He was ordained a priest a couple years after this. And he just had this great desire for missionary work. And his idea was that he would be able to serve that out, kind of going to the New World, right? In the very early 16th century. So this is only a couple of decades after the New World was discovered. The faith is still kind of new, and all of these great missions kind of to the Aztec peoples and to all the native peoples of Mexico. So he wanted to kind of go help them out. However, before he actually was able to set off on this journey, he ran into a priest while he was in the city of Seville, a priest named Hernando de Contreras, who recommended him to the Archbishop of Seville. This priest is very taken by the piety and preaching chops of this John character that he met. And the Archbishop of Seville was also impressed and actually asked John to stay in Spain and to preach throughout Andalusia, kind of be like a wandering preacher, to which John did agree to this work. So he did this initially for 9 years and developed just a very well-known reputation as an engaging preacher, as a well-loved spiritual director, and also as a very wise confessor. Of course, it was during this time that he started to gain some enemies in the higher echelons of the church, because a lot of his preaching just had to do with the dangers of wealth, the dangers of riches. And of course, there's a lot of more richer people who were in positions of power in the church who didn't really like that preaching. So he was actually investigated by the General Inquisition in Spain around this time. However, since he wasn't preaching any heresy, he was very quickly exonerated and kind of released from that suspicion. So he went on to spend another many decades preaching throughout the other regions of Spain. He kind of traveled all over, not just Andalusia. And he made a lot of disciples and also a lot of friends. And I'm just going to read a name of several of his friends just to see kind of the types of people who were attracted by his style. He was friends with Saint Francis Borgia, Saint Ignatius of Loyola, Saint John of God, Saint John of the Cross, Saint Peter of Alcantara, and also Saint Teresa of Avila. So right there you can see kind of a lot of these very famous Spanish saints all lived around the same time and all kind of knew each other and kind of moved in a lot of the same circles. So just kind of a cool little thing, with St. John of Avila kind of in the middle of that circle of really holy, really awesome saints. And mentioning St. Ignatius of Loyola, who founded the Jesuits, the Society of Jesus, St. John spent a lot of time kind of helping the Society of Jesus expand. It was kind of one of the pivotal reasons why the Jesuits were able to expand, especially in Spain, as quickly as they were, and kind of become as skilled as they were. So during the later years of his life, St. John suffered from chronic illness, and eventually, he passed from this on the 10th of May in 1569. He was a very prolific writer, so his works were collected and widely translated in many different languages, including English, French, of course, Spanish. He was beatified by Pope Leo XIII in 1894, and he was canonized by Pope St. Paul VI in 1970, and Pope Benedict XVI declared him a doctor of the Church in the year 2012. So as I've said, he is also on the feast day of May 10th. And that's all we have for today. A bit shorter than last week, like I've said. Just a heads up that I'm going to be going away for the next week, so you should still have Saints of the Week. I think I'm going to get Tommy to help me out with that. So we got a lot of Saints up on deck for next week, so I hope I haven't given him too much work in the interim, but until I see you guys again, have a very blessed Easter, and God bless.